Hi there, let's make a Sophie scarf. So I had bought the Petite Knit pattern quite a while ago now, probably about sometime last year when I went to Loop London. So it was probably around the time that I posted my walk around video last year, and I couldn't knit then. I picked up the pattern because it was a popular pattern and I thought one day I'd be able to knit it. And then this morning I just I don't know, I just picked up my needles and I picked up this stone washed yarn that Scape use. It's Aran weight, and I've used it in other things before, you'll see on the channel, but I picked it up to practice the stitches and see if I could actually do the increases. So I only started knitting on the 28th of January, and I think today's the 18th of February. So far I'd been knitting on a garter stitch scarf, so every stitch was knitted in alpaca yarn, and I'm loving how that's looking so far. And then in the back of my mind, I've always had the Sophie scarf, and I guess I felt really intimidated by the I-cord edge and the idea of increasing and decreasing. And so I picked up my needles this morning and I thought I'd give it a go. And then in the pattern, it does explain how to do the increases, which when I had looked at different YouTube channels learning how to increase, it was quite a specific method. So I had to look up a separate video to see how to do that. And then I've been practicing this sample. So I'm actually quite impressed with how far I've gotten uh, in a day, I guess, before I started working for the day. There are some mistakes, so I think I messed up a bit here. I'm not entirely sure what I did, but I kind of messed up, I guess, counting or slipping, or I just did something weird. But anyway, it's just a practice sample, swatch, whatever you want to call it. Also, another thing that I'm struggling a bit with so far is the counting. So I have this counter that I have been using to count the number of increase rows I've made. So rather than the number of increases I've made after every so many rows, rather than every row, if that makes sense. But I think I've probably complicated it a bit much. So if it's 7, if I've got 7 on here so far, that is 7 times the number of rows per increase, which will give me the total number of rows I've made. I might need to revisit how I'm using it, but so far this is what I've been doing. Then there was another video I watched that gave some tips on techniques for the Sophie scarf itself. So in that video, the person recommended marking the side on which you do your increases with a stitch marker so that you always ensure that you are increasing on the right side. So I've done that as well. But unfortunately, up to that point, I probably have messed it up a bit. But it's just quite nice to see, because initially when I started it, I was thinking this looks really messed up. But then as you go along with the built-in I-cord edge, it really does start looking like what you'd expect. As I said, this is just a swatch, I guess. I haven't quite decided what yarn I'm going to make the final one in, but I just thought I'd come on and share my progress so far. I'm not sure how far I'm going to go with the swatch before I frog it, but I will just look through my stash of yarns to find potential yarns that I might want to use. I'm not sure of the weight that I want to use as well. I'll double check the weight that's recommended in the pattern, but I know that you can obviously I've seen some really nice versions in various weights of yarn, so I'm not too precious about it. But I think this is a little bit thick, maybe, for what I'm hoping the scarf to be. So this is Aran. Maybe a DK weight, I think, would be perfect for me. I'm just using this old Aesop bag as my project bag for this one, just because they're actually really handy bags if you ever have gone to Aesop or Aesop. They're really nice little cotton bags. So they have become small project bags for me. So yeah, that's day one of my progress of learning to knit the Sophie scarf, learning the techniques, the various increases, and the I-cord edging. So I don't think that's so bad for a first attempt.
It's a 7-point score, and that lead is now what looks like an insurmountable 22. I think as you watch Dan Sheehan, you're right, Gordon, England run out of defenders, but England are just not as sharp. Sort of bit in common with the Jamison Gibson Park try in the first half, the quick tap and go. They're a man down, yes, but the ball is off the ground before England are ready. They're a degree of sharpness off, no doubt. All clean. Aaron Lowe have come back with a penalty. Good bit of scrummaging from England, leaving the ball in, making Ireland scrummage. Jens doing the job against his mate Billy Phelan from the Lions Tour. What this gives England is, yes, a get out, but in coming on post yellow card. Smith.
So I'm about halfway through making my Sophie scarf, and from the last time we checked in, I was casting on with this Jameson's Shetland Spendrift, and the color is Heron. So I had started making the Sophie scarf initially in the Scapier's river washed, no, Scapier's stone washed. I started it in that, and that's like an Aran weight, and then this one is more of a fingering weight. So I cast on a new one. I really like this grey color, but my plan was to make this and then embroider some flowers onto it. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm about halfway through, as you can see. As a beginner knitter, I think the thing that I'm struggling with, apart from everything, no, but the thing I'm struggling with most with this project is counting. what I mean by that is there's a certain number of rows you have to do before every increase, and then you have to increase a certain number of times. And keeping track of those increases, I've really found quite tricky. And what I ended up doing is, so I have this mini counter, and what I do is I count every row I've done in the section for the increase, if that makes sense. And then once I've made the increase, I then mark it down on a tally sheet. So then I know how many increases I have. But then I can also, but also what I've been doing is referring to the pattern for the number of stitches that I should have on my needles when I get to the pattern's recommended number of increases. So then at that point, I'll start doing my decreases. And I haven't yet learned how to do decreases. So when I get to that section in the pattern, I'm going to go onto YouTube. I found a couple of videos that go through this specific type of decrease, and then I will do that. So that's how it's been going. I think the mistake I'm making is trying to go with very thin yarn very early. So the other thing I've struggled with in making this project is dropping stitches, and I think that is not only because of the weight of the yarn, and I'm just not used to, well, I'm still learning how to knit, but I don't really know how to repair properly. I've watched a few videos on how to pick up stitches that you've dropped and stuff, but I still can't quite get the hang of where the loops go and how. So there's a method you use your crochet hook to pull the loops back up, but I honestly I'm really struggling with that, to be honest. What I've been doing is if I've dropped a stitch accidentally, I have ripped back a few rows and then fed my needle back in. But that also might mean that the way I'm picking the stitches back up or putting them back on the needle might not quite be right. So I guess those are like beginner or baby knitter. I'm calling myself a baby knitter, but yeah, I think those are like baby knitter teething issues. Yeah, I'm really excited about how the project is taking shape. It's looking like what I would expect to see, so I'm quite happy with that. And oh yeah, and I've also marked the side on which the increases are being done with this little stitch marker, and that is so that I know that I am increasing on the right side. So one side is straight and the other side is, a gradual stepping, a gradual change. So yeah, that's how that's going. Um, I'll check in again when I've made some more progress, but that's sort of where I'm at. Um, I'm not sure if I have enough yarn, to be honest, but on this ball. So this ball has 100 meters, and I think, as far as I understand, the Sophie Scarf has calls for maybe 200 meters of a specific yarn. I haven't quite worked out how to do the yarn conversion or substitution thing yet, so I'm just using whatever the yarn I'd like. And I have a feeling I might run out of this, but I do have a second ball, so I doubt very much that I'm gonna need more than two for this. But yeah, so as I said, the plan is I'm gonna finish the scarf, I'm gonna wash and block, and then I'm going to embroider. So I've been looking at some videos. I think there's a lady called Judith Gumlick or something like that, who published a book with Lina on embroidering on knitting. And then there's also Jeanette Sloan, who has a book out on beading. So maybe it's a bit ambitious for my first finished knitting project, which I haven't even finished, but I'm hoping to add some embroidery and also some beading potentially. So we'll see how that goes. I've left the palette very neutral grey so that I can add colors and other things with my beads. So I'm really looking forward to that. What kind of fiber lover would I be if I hadn't already started planning for another whip without finishing the one I'm working on? But yeah, I'm really loving this. I know that the wool is a bit, it's not the roughest, and I don't think I have an allergy to wool, so it's fine for around my neck. But I did also want to do like a softer, make a Sophie in a softer fabric. So I went to Loop London, and from Loop London, I got a little treat. So from Loop London, I got these Ito Sensei mohair, and it's 60% mohair and 40% silk, and you get 240 meters or 262 yards. So I picked up two of them, and I love this cobalt blue. I don't think I have anything in this cobalt blue, but I thought that I could make a Sophie in this, and that would brighten up any sort of um, any of my outfits, especially in spring. And yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to have to double it because I believe that this is probably a lace weight, but I haven't tried using it yet, of course. Um, but yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm going to need to double it, which is why I got two. But then if I only end up using one, add, I can always use the second one in another project. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to using this. It's extremely soft. It feels lovely against my skin, and my skin can be sensitive. So, but we'll see. You know, it's different when you are wearing, when you have a scarf around your neck and you're heating up, how your skin then reacts with the wool and the mohair. So we shall see. But yeah, so I'm really excited about this color anyway. I really love this color. As I've said before, my favorite color is green, but I am also drawn to making my Sophie scarf with a pop of color so I can brighten up my outfits. So there's that. And then because my needles selection is pretty limited, actually, I have maybe four sizes of needles. So I got these Clover Takumi knitting needles, these bamboo needles, because I really am enjoying using bamboo needles. So these ones are pony. They're called pony bamboo needles, and they're really great. I think for me, I'm struggling, or when I've tried using metal needles, I struggled with the stitches sliding off. So I really like the bit of resistance that this needle has. So that's my pony needles, but the only reason I bought new needles is for the size. So these are the ones I already had were 4.5, which I think is a little bit too big for this yarn anyway, but I've used it. And the new ones I got were 3.5 mil. So I'm hoping that it's a good size for the Ito Sensei mohair, but also some sock yarns that I have, which I could try making socks. So I think I have maybe four sizes of knitting needles now. So my collection is growing. But yeah, so I thought I'd try these. I've posted a short video on testing them, like a quick test. They are very different to these. The bamboo itself is like polished, so it's extremely smooth. I would say it's as close to metal as you can imagine in the feel. The tips are very sharp, and I like the swivel cord. So I'm hoping the swivel cord means that uh, when I'm knitting, there's not too much of stopping and untangling. They'll just swivel as I go. So I'm looking forward to using them. These needles here, the pony ones, they're less tapered, but they are slightly rougher as well. So there have been times where the pony needles have caught or snagged on the yarn. So the previous skate piece yarn is thicker and it kept getting caught on it. And that might just be because the yarn is prone to splitting anyway. But I noticed that there was a bit of snagging. Whereas these new clover takumis, they feel extremely smooth and the tips are quite pointed and polished. So when I get to working on a new project with these, I'll see how I get on. So yeah, in the middle of a project video, I have acquired a couple of things, but I'll keep you posted on how I get on with my Sophie. So once I'm at a position where I finished, I'll show you what that looks like. And then I'll show you what that looks like before I block it. And then I will find or figure out my embroidery pattern.
Oh, so we needed one more as well.
The whole thing was like some British guy got arrested in Dubai.
So I got this grey sewing thread, and I'm going to try to use that to sew the beads on to the scarf and see how we go. So I'm going to get a length of thread and I'll pre-thread the beads onto the thread. Okay, so I had initially threaded all of the beads on, but I don't think it's going to work that way. So I'll just use them one by one as I go through the fabric, and I think that will be a better way of working. Maybe a bit slower, but we'll see. We'll go with it. So I'll just go one or two at a time. I think I'll do two at a time. Like that. And then I'll come back through the holes to secure them. That's what it's looking like so far. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Okay, so I'll just add one more pearly bead. And I'm just gonna stitch that in and secure it at the back. Okay, so that's my first little cluster, and I will do the same on the second one. Random selection of beads, and then and then I'm going to try and go back through each bead twice. See, this one looks a bit more like a flower, whereas this one's quite abstract. So that's where we're at so far. I think it's kind of cute. I'll see if I can add maybe one to the centers here, or trying to think, one in each. Yeah, that might be nice. Let's do it. Let's go for it. I'm thinking of doing a single bead in the middle of the French knot. So let's try that. Let's see how that goes. So I tried something different for myself. I'm really pleased with it. I will be able to get some wear out of it. And I have learnt some lessons for the next time. I did find it quite hard to embroider on the garter stitch. And I know there's a lot of books and materials on embroidering on knits at the moment. However, I think most of them are stockinette, and I can really understand why. I didn't use a hoop, but I didn't need to. It was just very simple, lazy daisies, French knots, and then you saw I just finished off with the adding some beads. So I didn't really need a hoop for that. But I can understand if I was embroidering something in the middle here, that would be a bit more challenging because it feels maybe a lot looser than stockinette. But anyway, I had a really nice time. So I have another couple of scarves in my whip pile, knitted scarves. I feel like I've got the knitting scarf bug at the moment. So I'll show those in an upcoming podcast. But today's video was mainly about making the Sophie scarf for the first time as a beginner knitter, and my thoughts, and showing you a bit of my process. And I don't think this will be the last Sophie scarf that I make. I would really like to make one in that lovely cobalt blue Ito yarn that I showed you earlier. So that might actually be cast on pretty soon. But I just want to finish a couple of the other scarves that I'm doing first before I then cast on another knitting project. But I'm really pleased with this. Would recommend, of course, to any beginner. It's probably one of the more popular beginner knitting projects out there. So give it a go and see how you get on. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts. Have you made one of these Sophie scarves before? And if so, what did you think? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.